It was an ordinary morning in the village of Nerevia, nestled at the edge of the Enchanted Forest. But for Alara, it was the beginning of something extraordinary. The forest, a place of mystery and magic, had always fascinated her. It was said that the trees whispered secrets to those who listened, and the creatures that roamed within were unlike anything found outside its borders. Alara had heard the stories of lost travelers who had disappeared, of treasures hidden deep within the forest, and of an ancient power that slumbered beneath its canopy. But she had always stayed away, respecting the boundaries set by the elders. However, something had changed. A strange feeling stirred within her, a longing to uncover the truth hidden in the forest's depths. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Alara heard it, a whisper on the wind. It was faint at first, but as she listened more closely, the words became clear. "Alara, come to the heart of the forest. The time has come." Her heart raced. She knew the legends, and she knew the dangers. But the call was undeniable. The forest was calling her. The next morning, Alara packed her things, a small satchel of food, a cloak, and a dagger for protection, and set out toward the forest. The villagers watched her leave, their faces a mixture of concern and curiosity. They had heard the stories of those who ventured into the Enchanted Forest and never returned, but Alara was determined. As she crossed the threshold of the forest, the atmosphere seemed to change. The air grew thicker, and the trees towered overhead like silent sentinels. The further she walked, the more alive the forest seemed. The ground beneath her feet shifted, the leaves rustled in patterns that seemed deliberate, and the birds' songs were soft and haunting. Hours passed as Alara ventured deeper into the heart of the forest. She was beginning to feel the weight of the forest's power, its ancient magic that flowed like a river beneath the surface. The trees seemed to watch her every move, their branches bending as if reaching out to guide her. Finally, she reached a clearing where the moonlight shone through the canopy, revealing an ancient stone altar at the center. There was something undeniably ancient about it, its surface covered in moss and ivy, but the air around it crackled with energy. Alara approached the altar, feeling the same pull she had felt since the moment she heard the forest's call. As Alara stood before the altar, the ground beneath her feet trembled. The air thickened with power, and the trees bent inward, forming a circle around her. A figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, cloaked figure with eyes that glowed like the stars. It was the guardian of the forest. "You have come," the guardian's voice echoed, both soft and powerful, as though the very forest spoke through them. "The prophecy spoke of you, Alara, the one chosen to awaken the power of the forest." Alara took a step back, her heart pounding in her chest. I don't understand. I only came because the forest called me." "The forest has always called to those who are destined to awaken its power," the guardian said, their voice calm but filled with authority. "You are the one who will bring balance to the forest and to the world. But you must first understand the truth of what lies beneath the surface." The guardian raised their hand, and the ground parted before Alara, revealing a glowing, ancient tree buried deep in the earth. The roots of the tree seemed to pulse with energy, extending into the depths of the forest. "This is the heart of the forest," the guardian explained. "It is the source of all magic, but it is also the source of the darkness that threatens to consume the land. You must choose, Alara. Will you protect the heart of the forest and restore balance, or will you allow the darkness to spread and bring an end to everything?" Alara's mind raced as she looked at the heart of the forest. She felt its power, its beauty, but also its weight. The choice before her was enormous. As the guardian spoke, the air around them seemed to shift. The trees began to rustle, and the shadows deepened, as if the very forest itself was holding its breath. Alara could feel the pull of the darkness, its whispers curling around her mind. It was tempting, so easy to give in and embrace the power it offered. "You feel it, don't you?" the guardian said, as if reading her thoughts. "The darkness is powerful. It offers you strength, control, and the ability to change the world. But it also consumes, twists, and corrupts. Elara closed her eyes, struggling to block out the whispers that filled her mind. "What would happen if I chose the darkness?" she asked, her voice trembling. "The forest would fall," the guardian replied, their tone solemn. "And the world with it. The magic that sustains life would be corrupted, and the balance would be lost forever. The forest would become a prison, and its power would destroy everything it touches." Elara took a step back, fear washing over her. The temptation was so strong, but she knew she could not let it take over. The fate of the world rested in her hands, and she had to make the right choice. "I won't let the darkness win," Elara whispered, her voice filled with resolve. The guardian nodded, their eyes filled with both pride and sadness. "Then you must awaken the light of the forest, the power that has been hidden for centuries. It is the only way to restore balance." With a deep breath, Elara knelt before the heart of the forest, placing her hands upon its glowing roots. The energy surged through her, and for a moment, she could feel the ancient magic flowing within her, guiding her. The forest seemed to come alive, and the shadows began to recede. But just as she felt the light taking hold, a powerful voice echoed in her mind. It was the darkness, pushing back with everything it had. "You cannot fight me, Elara. You are not strong enough." The darkness was powerful, but Elara refused to back down. She focused on the light within her, feeling the warmth spread from her heart to the tips of her fingers. Slowly, the darkness began to fade, replaced by the pure, calming energy of the forest. The heart of the forest pulsed one last time, its power fully awakened. The trees around her grew taller, and the air cleared. The forest had been saved, but so much still remained to be done. With the heart of the forest fully awakened, Elara could feel its energy coursing through her veins. It was as if the entire forest had come alive, each tree, leaf, and stone vibrating with power. The forest no longer felt like an ancient, mysterious place. It felt like a living, breathing entity, and she was connected to it in a way that words could not describe. The guardian stepped back, watching Elara with a mix of awe and respect. "The light has been restored," they said softly. "But the darkness will not give up easily. You have awakened something ancient, and the forces that have slept for centuries will now rise to challenge you." Elara nodded, her heart heavy with the knowledge that her journey was far from over. She had made the choice to protect the heart of the forest, but she knew that the real battle had only just begun. The forces of darkness would stop at nothing to reclaim the power she had unlocked. "Then we will fight," Elara said, her voice filled with determination. "The light will not fall again." With the heart of the forest now fully awakened, the first step had been taken. But the real test would come when the dark forces moved against them. Days turned into weeks, and Elara continued her training with the Guardian. Together, they explored the deepest parts of the forest, where the magic was at its strongest. Elara learned to channel the energy of the forest, growing more powerful with each passing day. But even as she trained, she could feel the storm brewing. The darkness was closing in. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a shadow fell over the land. The skies darkened, and the trees seemed to shudder as a foreboding presence made itself known. Elara's heart skipped a beat as she felt the pull of the darkness once more. "They are here," the Guardian said, his voice grim. "The dark forces have come to reclaim what you have taken from them." Elara stood tall, the power of the light radiating from her, but the sense of dread in the air was palpable. She knew that the forest was strong, but the darkness was relentless. "I will not let them take it," she whispered, steeling herself for the battle that was about to unfold. The forest erupted into chaos as the dark forces made their move. Shadows twisted and writhed in the air, taking shape as monstrous figures with eyes glowing like embers. Elara could feel the weight of their presence, their malicious energy suffocating the life around her. But she was ready. With a wave of her hand, Elara called forth the power of the forest, the light surging from her fingertips. The dark figures recoiled, their forms flickering in the light, but they were not easily defeated. As the battle raged on, Elara realized that the forest's magic alone would not be enough to win this fight. She needed more. The guardian, sensing her doubt, stepped forward, his staff glowing with ancient power. "Remember, Ilara," he said, "the power of the forest is not just in the light, it is in balance. You must harness both the light and the shadow, for only then can you defeat them." Ilara hesitated. Could she truly wield the power of both light and dark? It felt unnatural, dangerous. But the guardian's words resonated in her heart. The balance was the key. She closed her eyes, focusing on the energy within her, and for the first time, allowed herself to feel the darkness. The world shifted around her as she called upon the shadow, not to destroy, but to control. The power surged through her, melding with the light, creating an energy so pure and powerful that the dark forces recoiled in fear. As the battle continued, Ilara's power began to resonate with the very fabric of the forest. The light and dark coiled together, forming a force unlike anything the world had ever seen. But the dark forces were not going to be defeated so easily. They rallied together, growing stronger with each passing moment, and at their head stood the true embodiment of darkness, Zoran, the leader of the shadows. Zoran's form was vast, his eyes burning with a malevolent fire. His voice echoed through the forest, sending shivers down Ilara's spine. "You cannot control the darkness, Ilara," he hissed. "You are nothing but a mere mortal, and the darkness will consume you just as it has consumed everything else." Ilara stood her ground, her heart steady. "I am not just a mortal," she replied. "I am the guardian of the light and the shadow. I am the balance between both." With that, she raised her hands, calling upon the full force of the forest's power. The earth beneath her feet rumbled, and the trees groaned in response. Zoran's power surged toward her, but Ilara's combined forces of light and dark pushed back, creating a barrier that split the forest itself. The battle reached its peak as Ilara and Zoran clashed, their powers colliding in a blinding explosion of light and shadow. For a moment, the forest was silent, as if holding its breath. As the dust settled and the echoes of the battle faded, Ilara stood victorious. The darkness had been driven back, and Zoran lay defeated, his form disintegrating into the very shadows he had come from. The forest, though scarred, was still alive. Ilara collapsed to her knees, exhausted but triumphant. The battle had been fierce, but she had fulfilled her role. The balance had been restored. The guardian approached her, his expression one of admiration. "You have done it," he said. "The darkness has been banished, and the forest is safe once more." Ilara nodded, her heart heavy, but filled with a sense of peace. She had fought to protect the forest, to protect the balance between light and dark, and now she was free to live in harmony with both. As she stood, looking out at the world she had saved, Ilara knew that her journey was far from over. The forest had been healed, but the world still needed guardians, those who would protect the balance between light and dark. And she would be there, watching over it all, as the enchanted forest flourished once more.